Favorite monster overall? There are... I've talked about a lot of my favorite monsters. And I think overall, my favorite monster is probably the Carrion Crawler. Because it was one of the... It's right at the beginning, it's one of the first letter C monsters in the original AD&D Monster Manual. And it was the first one where I saw that illustration and it struck a chord with me. But since I already talked about the Carrion Crawler, I thought I would talk about some of the other monsters that I really like in D&D. Most of them are low-level monsters because that's where you spend most of your time in D&D. Not that any given game can't get you to higher levels, but you tend to start at low level, and then if a game ends, then you restart at low level in the next game, and so you've spent most of your time in low level, whether you're the DM or the players. So we know one of my favorites is the Carrion Crawler. We know that I love the Owlbear, the Black Dragon, Demogorgon, and other demons. I like the demons better than devils as enemies. There's really no good reason. You could swap them out. You could put an Osluth in place of a Merilith, and as long as you call it a demon, I think I like it better. The Black Dragon, Shadow Dragon, goblins and orcs, kobolds, giant centipedes, giant spiders. So what are some of the ones that I haven't talked about? Well, what I was going to say is my second favorite monster overall, kind of, is the Gelatinous Cube. It's an iconic D&D monster. A lot of people make fun of it, and video games, the couple video games that have featured gelatinous cubes for D&D have done a very poor job of it. I want to say it was in the Neverwinter MMO. Was it the Neverwinter MMO? Or maybe it was the DDO online game. There's a gelatinous cube, and until you spot it, it's essentially invisible. Like you as a player have a huge barrier to overcome to notice it on screen. It is there, but it's very subtle. And if you're running too fast, you won't notice it. But then as soon as either you run into it, or it hits you, or when the game rolls your spot check, then suddenly it pops into existence. When you look at the illustrations for Gelatinous Cube 2, they've tended to make them very blue or green. They've added color to them, and they make them obviously stand out. And so if you're a new player to the game and you've never seen this creature before, and you look at this thing and it's like, oh, it's a big green or a big blue square. Cube, technically, and then you read the description and you're like, this thing crawls down corridors and you're not supposed to be able to see it, but it's a giant green cube. How do I not see this when I'm going down the tunnel? Well, it's because it's not a giant green cube. It's a giant clear, colorless cube for the most part. It might have a very slight tinge of color to it, but it's essentially clear and colorless. And it's slow, and it's very quiet, because when it runs over stuff, it pulls it up into it. And it freaks me out, the idea of being in a hallway. Even just imagine your own hallway at home. You got home, you're going to your bedroom, or you're walking to the bathroom or something. And then just imagine you've walked this hallway a million times, and suddenly now you walk into something, and it's slimy, and it's burning you with acid, and it's sticky, and you can't really pull yourself away from it. It's like those... imagine the glue. If you've ever seen Little Giants, the movie with Rick Moranis where he coaches the Pee Wee Football League, and there was that one kid where he spreads the sticky glue on his hands and he's trying to pull them apart and he really can't. Or imagine like some of the snotty slime from Ghostbusters or something. But anywhere where you have like that really sticky super glue rubber cement looking stuff. And that's what I feel like a gelatinous cube should feel like. Even though I don't believe in game it has a stick-to power. That's the Roper with its tentacles has a sticky power. But Yeah, that just, it freaks you out, because then once you touch it, it kind of pulls you inside, and now you're completely surrounded. You can't breathe. You're dissolving, literally dissolving from the outside. And eventually, nothing will be left of you but the few pieces of metal you're carrying. So, like your car keys, maybe the little magnetic strips off the back of your credit card. Actually, they don't have plastic in D&D, so let's say the plastic survives too. My wallet is leather. That's going to die. I have some dollar bills. Those are going to dissolve. But maybe my credit cards and my driver's license will survive me, so people will know how I died. So I really like gelatinous cubes. Once the party spots them, it's very easy for them to try and kill it. In a mechanics sense, because it has crap for armor class. You can hit it with anything. It's like hitting the wall. Yes, you hit it. And it doesn't have armor or anything. It's a giant ooze. So yes, you hit it. And you're going to slice into it. And it has a ton of hit points. It has damage reduction because it's an ooze. What are you going to do when you hit it with a board? Oh no. So once the party spots it, it's kind of like a one-off trap. Once the party spots it, well now, they're just going to stand back and try and kill it with arrows and that. You can make it immune to arrows, things like that, because killing a gelatinous cube with arrows is working under the assumption that it's like a big balloon, and if you poke enough holes in it, it'll start to leak out. But I view it as one homogeneous gelatinous hole. So there is no outer membrane to puncture. It's just a giant ooze. And the only way to really kill it is you'd have to sit there and hack it apart bit by bit until it's no longer a cohesive whole. And then you're just going to have... You ever had a super ball or any of those little rubber bouncy balls, and maybe it's been sitting around too long and it dries out, and so it gets all cracky, and then you can like crack it open, and the inside still has its moisture, and it's got that weird texture, that rubbery, plasticky texture to it. I feel like you'd have big chunks of that lying all around if you hacked apart a gelatinous cube. One of my other favorite monsters, it was introduced in 3rd edition, and it is the Krenshar. A lot of people don't like the Krenshar. A lot of people consider the Krenshar... There's a theme. A lot of people think owlbears and gelatinous cubes and Krenshar are stupid. They don't like the idea of them. They seem silly. It breaks their immersion, and I totally get that. But for me, I like them because they exist for certain reasons. The owlbear doesn't really exist for a reason. That's just funny, but I really like owlbears. But the Krenshar was specifically created in 3rd edition, and I can even tell you exactly why it was created. Because the creator, or one of the designers, I don't know if he was the one who actually created it, told us. Paladins are immune to fear. There are not many low-level creatures that cause magical fear for the paladin to be immune to. So they said, we will create a creature that's low-level that creates fear specifically for paladins. And, I mean, you can use them without paladins, but that was one of the design philosophies, one of the design reasons and justifications that went into creating the Krenshar. We need a low-level creature that causes fear. So they basically just took your standard cat/wolf structure and hung a fear effect on it. So if you've never seen a Krenshar before, they are kind of like... by the illustration, it's like a leopard and a hyena had a baby. So it's big. It's supposed to be cat-like, like a big cat. But it also has that hump and tuft of fur on its back, and the kind of pseudo mohawk that hyenas have. But their special thing is they have unusual musculature, and their skin on their skull is not attached to their skull. And so by flexing certain muscles, they can actually pull all that skin back across their head, exposing their skull and some of the muscles and stuff underneath. And then they release a high-pitched screech. And it's a magical fear effect. And that's the part that people think is silly. It's like, oh, it pulls the skin right off of its head. But I like it. I thought it was very compelling when I read it in the monster manual. And so I've liked using them in-game. quite a bit. Plus, it teaches players, about fear, and it can help when you fear a low-level party. And by low-level, I mean these guys are appropriate encounters for first-level characters. So, if you have a first-level party and you just use like 2 Krenshar, they get 2 chances at fearing, unless I don't think saving against 1 Krenshar makes you immune to the next Krenshar. Once you've saved versus a Krenshar, I think you're not allowed to be affected by their fear power again for 24 hours, because otherwise they run up and they fear you, you run away, they chase after you, they fear you, you run away, and it keeps going on ad infinitum. But let's say you use a Krenshar and it fears half the party, so half the party runs away. Now, which half of the party is most likely to run away? The fighter and the rogue. Let's just assume a standard 4 fighter, cleric, rogue, wizard. The cleric is going to have the best will save. The wizard will have the second best will save, because he has a good will save, and the cleric has a good will save and wisdom. So those 2 are likely to save, whereas the fighter and the rogue are most likely to run away. So now 2/3 of our melee team have run away. So now we have the cleric, who's... I mean, this is first level, so it's not like he's terrible compared to a fighter or anything. He's got good armor. He's got, a +0 attack bonus instead of the fighter's +1. He's just unlikely to have as good of a strength score. And it's similar. He functions to a similar capacity as the rogue, but with less damage burst and more armor class. And the wizard. So they could die very easily. Or they could run away too. And now you've taught your party to run away from a superior threat. Isn't that an awesome idea? I think it's an awesome idea. So I like that. I've mentioned, of course, I love skeletons and zombies. Slow zombies. What else is there that's like an iconic creature type that I like to use to go for my favorite creature? I already talked about humans and other demi-humans, or humanoids as they're called in different editions. I think in the first edition you called them demi-humans, and in second edition they were humanoids. Or no, second edition still called them demi-humans. Humanoids were the expanded racial options from the Humanoid Handbook. I love dragons. A monster that I've never had a chance to use, but I really want to, is a Remoraz, which is like a giant centipede-looking thing. It lives in the cold regions, and its back has special organs all down it that create an incredibly intense heat, and there's actually a chance of you melting your weapons from hitting a Remoraz. That reminded me. Okay, the Rust Monster. DMs who are jerks, and we are all jerks at some point or another, love to use Rust Monsters. The Rust Monster was introduced as all the way back in first edition, maybe even original, and it was created from a little plastic toy that Gary Gygax bought somewhere. So he had a collection of these little plastic toys, and none of them were like real creatures, or maybe they were real creatures, but someone did a really poor job of casting them in plastic. I believe the owlbear might have come from that, but I don't think so. I know the Rust Monster did, and you can actually still see pictures online of people, because Gary wasn't, he didn't make it himself. Other people owned these toys too. But it's exactly like what the Rust Monster looks like in the first edition. And it's got like a prawn tail and looks like a cricket insectile body. And then instead of the antenna going backwards or anything, they go straight forwards and end in these feathery tips. There's a very good article by Mike Merles on the Wizards of the Coast website from just a couple years ago, back when right before 4th edition came out. So it was still in 3.5. And he was redesigning iconic monsters from D&D to make them more user-friendly. And like, one of the things was he would take a monster like the Beholder or one of the demons who has just a laundry list of magic powers, and then cut it down to ones that make sense. There's no way you're going to use all these powers in any given combat, so let's just cut it down to a couple powers that are iconic and evocative of the monster, and things that you'll be able to use in a fight. So that you can actually get off the powers and not have to sit there and spend time reading through the whole laundry list of what abilities does he have. Okay, can I use that right now? Maybe. But one of the monsters he redesigned was the Rust Monster, and the reason why is the Rust Monster is kind of a jerk move. No matter what level of play it comes in at, if it's a serious threat, it's not a threat to the party. It doesn't hurt the party. Rust Monster never killed no one. But it eats their equipment. And man, do players hate, I've got this brand new set of plate mail armor that I saved up all my money for, and now it's completely useless. I just got this magic sword, and now it's completely useless, etc., etc. It's a no-fun zone kind of creature. The only time it's fun to have a Rust Monster in a game for a player is when you, 1, warn the players ahead of time there is a Rust Monster by spreading rumors or what have you, or 2, engineering a situation where they don't really have equipment to lose. So, I don't think I mentioned it in any of these videos. One of the things I like to do when I start a party off is put them in a situation where they don't get to pick their starting equipment. They have to scavenge it from the dungeon to a degree. This is something that DCC RPG does too. When you start the game, you get 1 weapon and 1 piece of miscellaneous equipment, and then you're sent into the dungeon. Go. I plan on doing a video about that in a moment. I say in a moment, in the next couple days maybe. But when you put the players in that kind of situation and they're scavenging clubs and they've got like leather or hide armor, the low-level stuff, then going up against a Rust Monster, they have a lot of options. Now, they still have maybe a couple metal weapons or something, or maybe a metal shield that they really want to protect. But now, the Rust Monster's there. They have a whole bunch of options for killing it. And if they do lose, a shield or a weapon or something, it's not as great of a setback for them. As opposed to the party that's heading in and everybody's, all the fighter types and rogues and clerics are wearing metal armor and everybody has a metal weapon. And they stand to lose a ton of stuff. So Rust Monster is never a monster that you should just put in a game. It's a monster that needs to serve a purpose. And pretty much the only real purpose is that it has is 1, taking back equipment that the party really shouldn't have, or you handed out stuff too early. But in that case, you don't do it the jerk way by putting in a Rust Monster. You just tell the party about it, and you discuss it. I gave you guys this equipment, but it's really unbalancing the game right now, so maybe we can take it back, blah, blah, blah. Or the players know that there's a Rust Monster. They have information that there may be a Rust Monster. It doesn't have to be there is. It could be there may be. And they decided, we're going to ignore that information and head in anyway. Then you can punish them for not paying attention. You can also kind of punish them if they can see the Rust Monster before they engage with the Rust Monster. So give them a chance to run away. And a smart party will actually throw back a shield or something, and the Rust Monster will stop to eat the shield. Don't chase the party down with it. That's just wrong. Rust Monsters are a good monster if you use them the right way. This is getting long. I'm trying to think if there's any other monsters that I really like including. I mean, I love a lot of the D&D monsters. Trolls. Haven't talked about trolls, but I love trolls. Parties know about trolls. They like to hit on the trolls. They like to kill the trolls. And then everybody knows, burn the troll when you're done. And that's great. I have no problem with the metagame knowledge from players knowing that you have to burn a troll. And I especially like springing trolls on players when the troll is higher level than the party. So I like it when the troll is the big beefy guy and the whole party has to engage in combat with the troll. Not 1-on-1, but like 5-on-1. And that can happen when, depending on which edition of D&D you're playing, the troll has varied a little bit up and down in strength. But you can easily scale a troll by giving them fighter levels or something like that, and that makes them a lot more powerful. Alright, this is a very long video, but it is talking about my favorite monster overall, and when it comes to least favorite monster tomorrow, I don't know what I'll do. Alright, until next time, bye-bye.